I used to believe talent was everything. That if I stayed late, worked hard, played by the rules, I'd earn my place at the top. But in a room full of men who wore ambition like a suit and wielded it like a sword, I was nothing more than the pretty face who knew colors. I had spent years at Floria, helping it grow from a boutique into a nationally recognized cosmetics brand. I was their creative lead, but I was also their silent force, the one who tested formulas in my apartment at midnight, who listened to customers when no one else did. So when I presented my concept for a new product line, Nutiva, inspired by ancestral Mexican botanicals, I expected at least respect. They nodded. They smiled. But I knew those smiles. The kind men give when they've already made up their minds. The next week, they launched a similar concept, with Diego's name on it. The same Diego who once asked if I'd model the new lipstick for their internal pitch deck. The same Diego who never formulated a product in his life. "I say, you're amazing at the visuals," they said. But Diego has a firmer grasp on the numbers. "We need a balanced face to lead the launch." A balanced face. What they meant was a male face. That night, I drove in circles before going home. I parked outside my apartment and stared at my own reflection in the rearview mirror, flawless makeup, tired eyes, and a heart pounding with shame and fury. I was never going to be enough for them. Not serious enough. Not tough enough. Not one of the boys. But I was more than enough for myself. So I opened my laptop. Created a new folder. Márquez Beauty. Inside that folder, I poured everything they said I lacked. Strategy. Research. Brand identity. I didn't just want to compete, I wanted to dismantle the idea that I was ever just a face. I reached out to an old friend who now worked in sustainable packaging. I found a woman-run lab in Guadalajara that specialized in natural ingredients. I taught myself the basics of e-commerce and international shipping, from YouTube videos and old textbooks. My bank account got smaller. My days got longer. My doubts got louder. But so did my purpose. And here's the truth no one tells you. When they deny you a seat at the table, it's not rejection. It's redirection, to build your own damn house. And mine would be beautiful, powerful, and mine alone. The first 6 months were brutal. No investors. No loans. No safety net. Just me, my tiny kitchen, and an unshakable dream. I packed the first 500 lipstick tubes by hand, at my dining table, using stickers I printed myself. My apartment smelled like hibiscus and caffeine. I slept 4 hours a night, sometimes less. The only thing keeping me going was the voice in my head that whispered, "Show them what they missed." At first, no one cared. My website got 10 visits a week, 8 were probably my mom. I posted on Instagram, filmed awkward videos explaining my product line, begged influencers for a review. Most of them ignored me. But one didn't. A beauty blogger with 2 million followers messaged me back. "I don't usually do small brands," she wrote. "But your passion shows." She tried the Flor de Luna highlighter and posted a rave review. Within 24 hours, everything changed. Orders poured in. I cried, not out of joy, but from exhaustion. My tiny apartment became a fulfillment center. My kitchen? A chemistry lab. I hired 2 assistants. Then 4. Then, one morning, a news site published an article. "This Latina entrepreneur is disrupting the beauty world with ancestral wisdom." They called me a visionary. A fighter. A genius. But all I could think was, "Now you see me." Floria saw me too. I heard whispers. That they regretted their decision. That they were losing customers. That Diego had tried, and failed, to recreate my formulas. One day, I passed their flagship store in Mexico City. It looked empty. I stood across the street, clutching my Café de Oleo, and smiled for the first time in months. Because I didn't just rise. I made sure they had to look up to see me. And the higher I climbed, the more I realized, this wasn't just revenge. It was rebirth. The moment that changed everything came in the form of an invitation. An email. Just 4 lines. Dear Miss Márquez. We would be honored if you would speak at the Global Women in Business Summit in Paris. Your journey has inspired many. Kindly let us know your availability. I reread it 6 times. My hands trembled more than the first time I applied lipstick in my mother's bathroom mirror. This was real. They were inviting me. I had spent years trying to prove I belonged in rooms filled with suits and glass walls. And now, I was being offered a stage in a palace built on resilience, innovation, and female power. I arrived in Paris with my best blazer, a suitcase full of samples, and a speech that took me weeks to write. Backstage, I stood among CEOs, tech founders, economists, women who had conquered the impossible. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't scared of being the makeup girl. I was Isabela Márquez. The woman who built a global beauty brand from her kitchen counter. When they called my name, I walked into the spotlight, not with perfection, but with purpose. I spoke about tradition. About the power of Mexican herbs passed down through generations. About being silenced in boardrooms. About choosing not to ask for permission anymore. And then I said. They told me I was too emotional. Too soft. Too feminine. They said I didn't belong. So I built a company that celebrates exactly those things, emotion, softness, femininity, as strength. The applause echoed for minutes. And when I stepped down, a young woman, barely 20, ran up to me with tears in her eyes. You made me believe I could do it too. That's when I knew. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. When I returned to Mexico, I expanded. Opened training centers for underprivileged girls who wanted to learn skincare formulation. Started a scholarship for indigenous women in chemistry and entrepreneurship. I created a space where young girls didn't have to dim their light to be taken seriously. Then, one day, I got a call. It was from Floria's parent company. Would you consider acquiring our brand? They asked. Diego has stepped down. Sales have plummeted. We believe you could breathe new life into it. I laughed. Not out of cruelty, but from disbelief. No, I said, smiling. I'm not in the business of saving broken systems. I built better ones. And that was it. I didn't just earn a seat at the table. I built my own stage, and left the doors wide open. The first time I felt peace, it wasn't in a quiet room or a luxury vacation. It was in a factory. I stood on a platform, watching dozens of women, young and old, blending oils, filling lip gloss tubes, measuring pigments with careful hands. Laughter echoed from the break room. There was music playing from someone's phone. Cumbia, I think. And I just stood there. Not as a boss. Not as a name printed on the labels. But as a woman who had once been told, maybe you should try something less ambitious. I walked through the rows of workstations, greeted by Buenos dias, hey fall, and warm smiles. Each face reminded me of a younger version of myself, hopeful, overlooked, underestimated. In that moment, I knew this was power. Not dominance. Not revenge. But the ability to create space for others to grow. I remembered the girl I used to be, clutching her samples in a crowded metro, sweating through her blouse, praying that someone, anyone, would give her a chance. She would never believe this life. She would never imagine the hundreds of women who now stood beside her, because she refused to give up. One afternoon, I sat at my desk, the one I had designed myself, in soft pink marble and brass, and opened a letter from my former boss. Yes, him. The same man who once said I wasn't executive material. The same man who replaced me with Diego. He wrote, "I've been following your company's success. I see now that I underestimated you. Would you be open to a conversation? Perhaps we could collaborate." I stared at the page for a long time. Then I placed it in my shredder. Because peace isn't about forgetting. It's about knowing you no longer need their approval. I turned my attention to a fresh stack of resumes, from women applying for mentorship, internships, and executive training. I saw myself in all of them. Not just the struggle, but the brilliance. I circled 5 names. My next leaders. That night, I stood on my rooftop under the stars. The same city that once suffocated me now stretched beneath me like a promise. I whispered to the wind, "Thank you for doubting me. You built the fire I didn't know I needed." And for the first time in a long time, I didn't just feel powerful. I felt free. Sometimes, people forget there's a human behind a logo. A face behind the foundation shades. A soul behind every lipstick name. They see the campaigns, the magazine covers, the sold-out product lines. They see Isabela Márquez, CEO, in headlines and think I live in permanent spotlight. But truth? I still have nights where I doubt myself. When I wake up sweating from dreams of that old boardroom. When I hear whispers of too much echoing in my head, too loud, too soft, too bold, too woman. The woman behind the brand is still healing. I'm still the girl who once hid her ambition under layers of humility because she was told confidence wasn't ladylike. I'm still the woman who flinches at the word replaceable, because I once was. And I'm also the woman who stood back up. Who held her bruises with grace and her anger with discipline. Who didn't let failure define her, but instead distilled it into perfume, cream, and courage, bottled and sent into the world like little weapons of self-worth. I don't run my company to prove anyone wrong anymore. I run it to prove something to the girl I used to be. And the girl watching me now. I see them, all of them. In every Q&A, in every DM, in every nervous hand raised at my talks. How did you know you were ready? What if they never take me seriously? Is it too late to start? And my answer is always the same. They may never give you power. So take space. And if the room doesn't have a chair for you, bring your own. That's what I did. Not just in business. In life. In love, I no longer accept crumbs of affection. In friendship, I no longer stay where I have to shrink. In work, I no longer ask for a seat, I build the table. And on the days I feel small, I remind myself. Even mountains were once soft soil. Even flowers bloom after being buried. This is my story. Not because I was perfect. But because I chose to rise, again and again. So if you're listening, and you feel unseen, unheard, underestimated, know this. You don't have to be chosen to be powerful. You just have to choose yourself. And when you do, don't look back.